So, I'm going to talk about the work that we've done in the UK, thinking about, based on our research, how we can help consumers to save. We've identified, as in Elaine's work, that active saving and not using credit for everyday essentials are two of the key things highly correlated with financial well-being, and therefore they're two of the areas that we've called out as things that we want to focus on. So we really want to understand how do we help UK consumers to save. And we've already established, I think, today that there's huge commonality between the UK and Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and therefore I'm sure the stat here is very similar to the stats that you'll see from the other countries. So we reckon 22% of UK adults have got less than £100 in savings anywhere. If you look at actually money in a savings account, the figure's even smaller. And yet, at the same time, we know that around 7 in 10 households will experience an unexpected bill in a year. And if we look at what those bills cost, an awful lot of them are around £250, £300, £400, £500. And what we know is that if people don't have that money, what happens? They will then tend to borrow it, and then if something else goes wrong, the whole thing starts to unravel and you have real problems. One of the debt advice charities in the UK reckons that if all households had £1,000, you would reduce the number of consumers in the UK presenting for crisis debt advice by 500,000. So it's clearly really important that we can help people to build that savings buffer. And really, again, as we've seen earlier today, this is not just about income. I'm not pretending for 1 minute that it isn't harder for people on lower incomes, and some of those on the lowest incomes, it's very hard indeed. But I think one of the important takeaways, and I know this point's already been made, is that it isn't just if you earn a lot of money, you have a savings buffer. If you don't, you don't. And we found exactly the same when we looked at that using credit for everyday essentials. We found as many in earning more with a household income of above 50,000 as those with a household income of less than 17,500. So it isn't just about income. And when we do our analysis of our adult financial capability survey, we find that those people who are saving, it's correlated with these much more around attitude and mindset. So it's about locus of control. It's about being engaged with your money. In other words, being willing to make time for your money and believing that you can make a difference. And it's about having a savings mindset, believing that it's important to save, important to budget, important to keep track. So what I think I've set out is no surprise to anyone. It builds on a lot of what we've heard already today. What I want to do now is really to focus on, so what do we do about it? We've understood there's a problem. We've seen that it's correlated more with attitude and mindset than income. But what do we actually do about it? So I'm going to use the Behavioural Insight team's model, their EAST model. It must be something about behavioural economists and four-letter acronyms. So, BEARS and EASTs and all these things. But the EAST model, I think, is really quite a nice way of looking at this. So what it says is, if you want people to change their behaviour, not just financial behaviour, any behavioural change, you're more likely to be successful if you can make it easy, if you can make it attractive, if you can make it social, or if you can make it timely. So in a minute, I'm going to go on and just work through each of those and talk a little bit about some of the work that we've done and some of the ideas that we're testing. But before I do, I thought it might be quite just helpful also to say some of the things that I don't think work. So one of the things is telling people that they should save, I don't think is really going to have any use at all. You talk to lots and lots of people, and there's only a small minority who will say to you, no, you don't need to save. Those tend to be the people, in my experience, have been more around the sort of middle and slightly higher income who go, well, I'll put it on a credit card, why do I need to save? So most people believe that they should save, and when you talk to them, they'll say, I know I should save, but I can't at the minute because of X, Y, Z. So that doesn't work. I don't think it's around access to savings products in the UK. I'm not saying they can't be better or whatever, but I don't think that's a problem. When we talked, we did a quantitative study with people who were on sort of below average to average incomes who had no savings, and we said, do you know where to save? Yep. Do you know how to open a savings account? Yep. I just haven't done it. So I don't think it's a sort of product issue. And the other thing is, I think it was Daniel Gilbert at Harvard University said, fear is a terrible motivator. And certainly we did, one of the tests which we did was testing that statistic about 7 in 10 households will experience an unexpected bill. Do you think you should do something about it? No, it won't happen to me. It happens to the other people. I'm one of the 3 in 10. So, telling people bad stuff is going to happen, so you need to do things, doesn't work to encourage people who don't save to save. I'm not saying some of the people who already are savers and established savers may believe that, but telling people who don't save, you know, all hell's going to break loose if you don't have savings, it really doesn't work particularly well. So let's come back to the things that might work. So how could we make it easy for people to save? So one of the ideas that we're testing is something called sidecar savings. And the idea is that you put a savings buffer alongside an auto-enrolled pension. It's an idea that came out of Harvard, and we're testing it with Nest in the UK, and we're hoping to go into employer field trials later this year. We've done the qualitative work to test it, and they've really got a very positive feedback. People say, yeah, I like, you know, obviously some people don't like their employer, don't trust their employer, but a lot of people go, yes, it's lovely. It puts the discipline in place for me. It makes my life easy. So that's one idea to pursue. How can we make savings attractive? And again, I think there was a discussion earlier about, you know, the social side of savings. One of the things I've heard quite a lot in focus groups is people go, I don't want to save. I remember somebody saying to me, oh, my brother-in-law saves. He's a real saver. He earns lots of money. And do you know he's worn the same boring jacket for the last 5 years? And similarly, when we talk to a group of sort of 20-somethings about savings, what do they hear? Oh, savers, that's Billy No-Mates. They never go out. I don't want to be a saver. So how can you make savings more attractive? Well, one thing is we can focus on goal-based savings. So, OK, I might think savings really boring, but maybe going on holiday or something like that is attractive. And my logic is, OK, at least then you've got your savings. So if that boiler breaks down, if you have a problem, you actually have the money available. How can we make it social? So we did a challenge. We had an online community. Again, people on sort of modest incomes who didn't save. And we said, can you save £100 a month? No, can't save £100 a month. All the usual good reasons, you know, rent's expensive, kids this. Cut a long story short, there was only a small trial, 23 people. By the end of it, they all saved, except one who didn't save because her dog was ill and she had the money to pay the vet's bill. And at the end of that, when we went back after 6 months to see how they were doing, she was saving loads and was a complete advocate for an unexpected bill happens. But you have to sort of experience it. So, online community, people like you. There's some interesting work done by ING in the Netherlands, who took ING customers in a homogenous area and sent targeted emails to people who didn't have savings and said, people around here save or save more than you. It hasn't been published yet, I don't think, but again, they saw a real uplift in savings. And again, we tested also the idea of a savings buddy or a savings supporter. People don't want to say, I don't want to share my details with you, can't see my account, but actually I'll say to you, Karen, will you just, I'm going to save up and I want to save £500. I'm just going to check in with you monthly to see how I'm doing. And again, that actually landed better than we expected. And T-Timely, this is something, again, we're hoping to take into a field trial next year. The logic behind this is if you take out a loan and you're paying, let's say, $200 a month for your loan, pardon me, you default such that at the end of that loan, you can have $100 a month back and $100 defaults into a savings account. So it's easy, it's, you know, that same save for tomorrow idea. But again, that went down very well in our FinCap labs, and we're hoping to take it forward with one of the main banks in the UK. So that's my East model, but I want to end, my slide, there was a slide on the end that's disappeared. So what you have to imagine is some happy children, because the key point is start young. We've got lots of evidence. There's a longitudinal survey in the UK called the British Cohort Survey. Everybody born in 1970. You can actually find correlations between cognitive and non-cognitive skills as a child and adult behaviours. We've run a parenting intervention in Wales where we put a financial capability module into an existing parenting intervention, and we really found big results. So if you give children money, give them regular money, give them responsibility for that money, it really has a very positive effect. Children can pick up the concept of saving by about 5 or 6. So again, that's often, that's starting young. So we think parents are really important over and above the school. And the other really interesting thing was actually the parents on the parenting intervention were twice as many of them were over-indebted as in the population as a whole, and actually at the end of it, we found the parents had reduced their debts. So you're helping the children and the parents. And that is the end, with 14 seconds less to go. So thank you very much indeed.